So my name is Detective Michael Bisset. I work with the Northborough Police Department, and I have since January of 2013. Since last year's school year, I have been assigned as the juvenile detective and the school resource officer for the town of Northborough. The purpose of this position is a couple different things. One, I'm here to act as a liaison for the police department to the school district, because there's information that can be exchanged between the two that can be very helpful for both of our jobs, where things might happen outside of school that might affect a student inside of school. So being able to bring that information to the school's attention can be very helpful, and vice versa. Things happen here in school that might impact the students' lives outside of it, that can be relevant to providing clarity with that. While I'm here, I spend a lot of my time interacting with the students in particular. So that is meant to, one, kind of establish a bit of a rapport and an engagement there, so as to kind of break the stereotype of police are only there to be scary. Unfortunately, most folks' interaction with police officers only come at a time when something bad happened. It could be something as innocuous as they got pulled over for a minor motor vehicle violation, they got in some kind of a crash, maybe something bad's happening at home and they've called. But often people's interactions with police aren't at their best times in their lives. So part of the idea of having a school resource officer into a building is to provide a more personal relationship, or a more personable relationship with what police officers are. Often I'll find that once that's kind of happened a little bit, and the kids have got to know me, they'll be a little more apt to open up to me, a little more apt to come kind of speak with me, and even ask me questions. So like the kids that come with motor vehicle questions. Everyone's turning 16 or 16 and a half, and they want to know, hey, when can I drive this? Who can I drive with that? And they'll come ask me those questions, and then the more that relationship develops, the more those questions that they might ask become. I think any number of students see my role as being any number of different things. Some students that really take the time, they come in, they talk. Some students, if I'm in here, I know when they walk by, they're going to poke their head in and say hi, we'll talk for a couple minutes, then off they're going to go. I think they have a really good grasp of what I do here, what's my role, and what I do. Some students see me walk around the hall, I have a gun and a badge, and they think I'm here solely for the basis of security, which, well, of course, if I'm here and something happens, that's part of my job, is to respond and address that situation. But it's way more than just that. This position was created and developed and implemented here into the school back in the 90s. So this has been going on for a very long time. So I think students see it as any number of different things. There's probably some students that think I'm just here to get them in trouble as well. And some students do get in trouble with me, and that does happen, but that's usually a consequence of their action as opposed to me just happening to come across something, which does happen as well, but I can't just make things up to get you in trouble. So depending on the student and how much we've interacted and what way we've interacted, they might see my role as being very different. So Algonquin for me is part of why I wanted to come back and work for the Northborough Police Department. I'm from Northborough. I was a Northborough kid. If I was a Southborough kid, I'd probably feel the same way, frankly. But the idea that part of where I am in life is due to the chances I got throughout my formative years. I went through Peasley School, over the middle school, and then here. My family was fantastic. The supports I had while I was here were great. And I wanted to be able to give back something to the community that brought me to where I am, made me the person that I am, or at least helped to. And so by doing this, I can help contribute to maybe somebody else's or multiple people's chances at success by just making this helpful and supportive environment for them. I got into this job because I wanted to help people. Quite literally, I want to do everything I can to help a person when they're having a difficult time. And unfortunately, there's a limitation to how much I can do in my role, or a police officer can do in their role. Sometimes that's very difficult because you want to do more, you want to be able to solve everybody's problems, you want to be able to make everyone's lives just kind of run smoothly, and that's not always possible. So what I find very difficult is if I get brought into a case that has one person who's being particularly victimized or challenged, I'll do everything I can to help that person investigate that case and get them some closure, but that isn't always everything they need, and sometimes it's really hard for them to get to a place where they're feeling better about something after. So for me, that can be difficult when you see a person who's so negatively affected because of the terrible actions of someone else, and I can only do so much to help correct that. The personal life for a police officer can be very, very challenging. So, for example, the town of Northborough is staffed 24 hours a day with police officers. That means that at some point there is a guy who comes into work at midnight and leaves at 8 a.m. When I worked patrol prior to becoming a detective and working here at the school, I worked from 4 p.m. until midnight. So if you think about when your family and when you usually see them, it's usually during the hours of about 4 p.m. until somewhere around midnight. And for 4 years, I was not there for any of that. I was at work for 4 until midnight. It's also challenging on my wife. When we have plans, like we're out for dinner, and I get my phone that goes off and says, I need you to come back to work, this thing happened. I can't really say no. That doesn't work that way. I would probably lose my job if it did. She understands and she recognizes that, but it doesn't make it any less difficult for her to realize I have to go back to work when we were expecting to have time for ourselves. In all honesty, I do like being here because this is something that I wanted to do when I was getting hired. In the hiring process, the first round of interviews I had, the current SRO at the school was actually on my hiring panel, and I told him when getting hired that eventually I wanted his job, which I don't know how he felt about that, but at least for me, this was a goal of mine career-wise, is to become and be a school resource officer. So for me, Algonquin is the fulfillment of at least one of my career goals.